people were actually jumping on the engine to get photos, get selfies kind of deal. Yeah, no, oh yeah, I mean, and that's why I love Central America, because in Canada or the US,
You get shot.
there's no way you're jumping on an engine for a photo.
Arie Huggerbrug, also known as Safari Arie, started in St. John's, Newfoundland on November 12, 2019. His mission? To bike the road less traveled. Today is just one pedal closer to the tip of Argentina.
All right, hey guys, this is Brandon McCaskill. This is the Safari Arie Road Show. We got Arie here on the phone here with us, and we just call him up every now and then to see how things are going on his bike trip. He is biking across North America and South America. He is currently in Mexico. Arie, how you doing?
Yeah, no, actually, I'm doing really well. Really well, actually. I'm in a place or town called Creel. It's kind of like, sounds like the fish food. It's actually spelled C-R-E-E-L. And actually, since I'm actually talking about pronunciations of a town, full disclosure, I can barely even pronounce Canadian and American cities and towns. No, like I'm actually beyond horrible.
Same.
And I can't speak Spanish. So moving forward, probably for the rest of this ride, because pretty much the rest of this ride is like Spanish.
Yeah.
I am going to butcher names like worse than you can even imagine. So I apologize to begin with. And it's honestly, I'm not even really sure actually how to move forward with certain videos, because I cannot pronounce any cities, like virtually any cities, period, unless it's like San Ignacio. I can say San Ignacio. That's like the only town I can pronounce in Spanish. Yeah. So I really don't even know how I'm going to do this. But full disclosure, I am going to butcher Spanish cities like so badly that people are just they're literally going to put their hand over their face going, what is this guy doing? Yeah. So full disclosure. And I don't even know how to fix that. I really don't even know. I actually stress out about the fact I can't even say a Spanish city on a video, which means I'm going to completely ruin every video moving forward. But anyways, I digress. I'm actually doing pretty good. I'm doing actually, really good, because we have not actually spoken in quite some time. And that was a combination of me having a issue. I had some trouble not having a place that we could actually do this kind of deal. And then you were actually on vacation, which you're obviously entitled to. So, anyways, to those who follow the videos, I do apologize. I'll take the blame on my end, kind of deal. But anyways, so last time we spoke, I was in a town called Guerrero Negro. Yeah. Got that one. And I had basically experienced like the toughest days, the toughest weeks of the entire bike ride, biking through 115 Fahrenheit. And it was just pure misery, just as a recap from that last video. Yeah. Anyways, when I got to the Pacific side, to Guerrero Negro, temperatures were a lot more reasonable, and I had a sigh of relief, at least a temporary relief for a while. Yeah. But I had to leave that town, and from there, Highway 1 heads sort of back east towards the Sea of Cortez. And so that was, I can't remember, that was like 2.5 weeks ago kind of deal. I'm thinking ballpark. Anyways, when I left actually Guerrero Negro, I actually broke my record. I did not leave that town until after 1 p.m. because you were trying to get it uploaded, and I wanted to share it before, because I figured as soon as I leave town, I'm going to lose reception. I can't share it to Facebook kind of deal. Yeah. And so I did not leave that town until after 1 p.m. because that's like my time, because that was by the time you finally got it uploaded to YouTube. Yeah. So I left that town at 1 p.m. I ended up biking. I was in this largely just because it was flat. I mean, there was no other anything else behind it, but basically because it was flat. And then as I got later in the evening, all of a sudden I realized, like, holy smokes, I think I can actually break this record. But I actually broke I broke my record and made my new record for distance. My old record was 141 kilometers back when I was in Ottawa to Brockville. I biked 141 kilometers till like 2 or 3 in the morning. Yeah. And so leaving Guerrero Negro towards La Paz, I biked 142 kilometers. So I made my new record. And so that was conditions, weather, Everything was actually really reasonable. No complaints. The next day, though, oh my goodness. Basically, for all intent purposes, everything went back to a living hell.
Gosh.
The next day, basically what happened was, because 142 kilometers, I was now getting closer to that eastern side where they see a Cortez.
Yeah.
And basically what happened, more or less, to the conditions of, like, as far as the weather did not get as hot as 115 anymore. Like, it dropped. I'm going to probably guess between 100 and maybe 105, kind of like an average, give or take. Right. But what happened is basically moving forward, generally there was like no breeze. And it's you know, you wouldn't necessarily notice it necessarily unless you're actually doing physical work in 100 to 105.
Yeah.
But when all of a sudden there is no breeze and you're just sitting in the heat, it's I don't want to say it's like devastating. It's just it's almost no different than the 115 with a breeze.
Wow.
And so it basically went into kind of pure misery again. There was actually one stage, there was a point where because now I'm going back, I'm trying to recall from that time, there was I left this town, I got about 25 kilometers. There was this beach area where there was camping, but there was a restaurant. And I got there at like 12:30. I did like 25 kilometers. And I basically sat at this restaurant inside from like 12:30 to 6:30.
Yeah.
And I got back on the road at 6:30 when the temperature was starting to drop, the heat of the day. And thank goodness I did, because leaving that restaurant, it was just, I hit one of the more hilly mountainous sections.
Yeah.
And I ended up biking till 1 a.m. It was, and had I done that in the afternoon, I'd like to say, I swear I'd be dead. Wow. I would have just heat exhaustion. I would have, and so it was situations like that. Like, that's what I kind of did in the first part is, I did a little bit biking at night, which, in Mexico, Central America is a huge no-no. You don't bike at night. Yeah. But I mean, I basically biked at night to kind of like save my life kind of deal. And now that's coming back to me, I got to this town called Laredo, which was actually quite nice. Temperatures were quite reasonable. And I left Laredo, and because I remember getting to Laredo, I thought I was going to die getting into Laredo. I was just so exhausted. I spent a couple nights there at a hostel / hotel. And I left there. It's funny, I left there. I had this really big mountain to climb, apparently, and I was actually going to climb it in the evening. But I turned off to get this bottle of water because there was a sign for a store, and that store ended up being at this marina. And my bike attracts a lot of attention. And I'm having this sit down to have this Coke, and there's these Americans there, and they're like, asking me about bike, and they're like, "Hey, you want a beer?" And it's like, "Of course I want a beer. It's like my first beer in Mexico," kind of deal. And then before long, it's like, well, we're going for a boat ride, because they had a boat, because I was at a marina. They had this boat, like, we're going for a boat ride for a couple hours. You want to join? I was like, wow, of course I do. Okay. So within minutes, it's like I'm on this, sort of not fancy, but fish boat, a fishing boat. And I had like a 3-hour boat tour, and then there's some more beers. And then we get back to the marina, and they're like, we're grabbing supper. You want to join us? And then it was like pizza dinner with another beer. Serious? Wow. You know what I mean? Oh yeah. Yeah. It's like, it made me think, it's like, you're on a bike tour. If there's a place where like Americans hang out for whatever reason, like go to the marina and just let them see your bike, and it'll lead to conversations that will lead to beers and boat rides and stuff like that. It was awesome. Wow. But then it was funny because it was like, the restaurant was on this second level, and I love my beer, but I just, for budget reasons, I haven't had any beer in Mexico, even though beer is cheap. But the last time I had beer was in Las Vegas. And so it's like, go downstairs to use the facilities, and it's like, oh, I'm not biking anymore tonight. Sorry?
So these little side things that you do, you're saying you went on like a little boat cruise here, and like there's other instances where you mentioned you go off for little hikes, but what do you do with your bike?
Yeah.
You lock it up somewhere?
Oh, well, okay, so I haven't so generally as far yeah, I mean, it's not like I want to keep like in Mexico per se. I don't want to keep my bike, by itself for any time, for any length of time.
Yeah.
And so most of the excursions, the hiking was actually like in Utah. Utah was where I did the bulk of all my hiking.
Right.
And so, yeah, no, I would just lock up my bike and leave it at the trailhead. Now, usually the trailheads, like for example, in Utah, that was kind of in the main, because in Utah, it was mostly canyons.
Right.
So there'd be a main lookout, in the park. And so I would just leave my bike and lean together. There'd be rock walls to keep people from falling down the cliffs kind of deal.
Okay.
And so I just leaned my bike against the rock wall and I would just leave it. And I left it, I mean, some of my hikes were 3-4 hours and I just left my bike for 3-4 hours.
Wow.
Disclosure, a lot of times, just quick prayer, Lord, protect my bike, protect my gear, that it's all here when I get back.
Yeah, that's
some people might go, oh, you're a dumb idiot. Yeah, no, but like some people, you pray over your bike, right? Yeah, you're a dumb idiot. Okay, well, whatever. You know what? I still have all my gear. You know what I mean? So,
I'm a dumb idiot.
But anyways, yeah, so I'm a dumb idiot. Anyway, so yeah, no, so that was generally. Now this situation, for example, yes, it's in Mexico, but I was at a marina that was basically 90% millionaire rich Americans. Mm. I mean, pretty much every American that would have been there was probably a millionaire, which means the last thing they're interested is in my bike. And I'm sure the Mexicans that actually work there probably get paid a reasonable price because it is a little bit high end, which means they're not going to, but you know what? That's the one thing, like when you look at my bike and my gear, I actually can't even imagine a Mexican even caring or even wanting anything on it because it's like, they don't really care about that stuff. So
nobody likes craft.
So that was a situation. But that was a situation where I was at this quote unquote American marina. So,
cool.
I left it locked. Now that being said, I actually have, just for other people that ride for bike touring, just as a FYI, I actually have a bike light. I got it in the US no, I didn't get it on Amazon. I got it through this Chinese website, but I think you can probably find them on Amazon. It's actually a motion detector. Actually, I think I actually have the thing in my pocket. Yeah. So I'm not my hosts are sleeping right now, but this is an automated remote to a bike light that I put on in. If I hit the lock button, basically goes beep, 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 beep. Really? And then 5 seconds later it goes beep again. And if you actually go up to my bike and mess with it, it'll start, an alarm will go off. That's cool. And mainly what I have this for is if I'm in a city like in Central America and I want to price out a hotel, I've got to, if I'm in a city, potentially in a city, pickpocketers are around or whatever. And of course they're going to see me and they're going to go, oh, there's a white guy kind of deal. And so lean my bike against a hotel wall. I got to go inside. I got to negotiate, figure out what the price is. The bike is out of my sight. Yeah. For me, that's the scary part of my gear in Central America. And so now I can just go like this. It goes beep, beep, beep. Basically tells the whole world this bike is, and I also have a lock, of course. So it's not like they can walk away with my bike. Right. But anyways, so if I go into a hotel and then someone wants to check out my bike and move it even just slightly, all of a sudden the alarm just beep, 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 beep.
Has kind of the alarm ever gone off?
And so, no. And I almost never, actually it's kind of strange. Well, if it's a city for sure, but even in town, I actually used to lock up my bike, in a town way more in the US than I do here. I'm more apt to walk into a place without locking my bike here. I'm not foolish about it, but I'm just saying, I actually feel more comfortable here leaving my bike in a way than I do in the US.
That's funny.
Mexicans, they don't care about this kind of stuff. They don't that's not what they're in one sense, they don't even, I'm sure they obviously notice me, but they notice it, but in one sense, they don't even notice me here kind of deal. So anyways, so the marina, I just locked up my bike and went, 3 hours boat ride. And of course it was all still there. anyways, yeah, the next day I did this massive climb. I was actually really scared because I had to do it now in the daylight, like in the heat.
Yeah.
But it turned out that there was a restaurant that I did not realize where they sold cold drinks. And
Yeah.
anyways, yeah, so I made my way to La Paz. So that was, I should just quickly just double check. So I think I did, so that left, that section of the Baja was 775 kilometers. So basically the whole Baja was 1,488 kilometers, which was by far the hardest section of the entire ride. I would, in one sense, I would do a Canadian winter for the next 10 years, 10 times over the next 10 years before I have to do the Baja again in the summer. It was really, and I mean, that heat actually started in Bullhead City, Arizona. So, so basically the Baja was more or less a month. So basically for about a month and a week, so maybe a month and a half almost, ballpark a month and a half, was just pure misery. Anyways, I was in La Paz for 2 nights. I ended up actually getting a host on warmshowers.org for cyclists. And I was actually a very last minute, I literally, because I had met some people on the road that were motorcyclists, and they actually turned around and they were from Mexico City, and they were like, you know, like we started talking, they're like, oh, well, we just came from La Paz. We have a friend there and this is his number. And so, but that fell through because of his work schedule.
Okay.
But now I was kind of like, I had to get something looked at on my bike, and I was like, crap, I actually kind of need a host if I can get one.
Yeah.
And I went on Warm Shower. Anyways, like basically 10 minutes later, he responds, oh yeah, come on down. And so I actually had a host for 2 nights. And that was the thing, like technically we should have done a show there, but it was a situation where like he also hosted for people for couch surfing. So there was actually other guests there. And because there are other guests there, I actually had to sleep in my tent on the, like where the pool was. He actually had a pool in his front yard, an in-ground pool, just a small one or whatever. But so I actually, every night I have to set up my tent beside the pool, and then in the morning, wake up, take the tent down kind of deal. And so I didn't actually have a place where we could do this kind of deal. So, and then, so anyway, so I was 2 nights there, and then I caught a ferry. There's a ferry from La Paz that brings you basically across the Sea of Cortez to Las Mochas. It was like an 8-hour ferry. I think I left at like 3 o'clock. I left about 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and I got to Las Mochas at about 11 in the evening. Wow. And by the time I was disembarked, now it wasn't the Las Mochas. The ferry actually arrives at another town that starts with a T. I don't remember, but I'm not even going to attempt, even if I saw it. And it was like about a 20, 25 kilometer bike ride to Las Mochas. And it was actually, FYI for cyclists again, there was a super wide shoulder and there was actually street lights. And so biking at 11 o'clock was not a problem. I was actually able to find something to eat in town. Now, mind you, by the time I got to the train station, because I went to a train station, by the time I actually got to this train station, it was like 1:30 in the morning. And that was a little bit freaky because I'm going through these surveys trying to get in the dark. And it's like, this is probably not where you want to be it's not, well, Las Mochas is a city, but basically I was biking in a city at 1:30 in the morning. And there's dogs barking, and I'm being that's the other thing in Mexico. I'm being chased by dogs all the time, and they're big. They're big dogs, and they're being chased, or I'm being chased. But anyways, I get to this train station at 1:30 in the morning, and there's already all these people sleeping because it's Mexico. Not everyone's got money for hotels and that kind of stuff. And so there's already these families leaned against the wall of this train station sleeping. And oh, what a night. I got basically I found a spot where I could lean my bike against the wall, and I kind of tucked myself on the ground. And then I got bit by mosquitoes all night long till like finally opened my eyes. Okay, I better open my eyes at like 5 a.m. And then there's like this massive line for people to try to get tickets. And I finally get a ticket, and I get my bike through the doors, but I've got the trailer, I've got the bags, and the guy says like, dude, we're leaving in 30 seconds. And it's like, help me, because I get my bike and trailer and all my panniers into a train. And he's like, we're going in 30 seconds. So, I mean, we were already moving before I even got a seat. Wow. So basically I was on this train called, the short form is El Chepe.
Yeah.
2 words, E-L, Chepe, C-H-E-P-E. And it's called the Copper Canyon Train. I probably actually should have made some notes as far as the Copper Canyon in regards. It's Mexico's only passenger train. They call it the Copper Canyon Train. So it's going to this Copper Canyon, which is actually four times at least, if not bigger than the Grand Canyon. It was built in the 60s, I think, this train, and it goes through all these bridges and tunnels and these steep cliff drop-offs. It was actually like, people have heard of it. They say, oh yeah, I've heard about that train, and people have been on it. It's like this super cool experience. And it was actually really neat. It's funny because like you can actually hang out the sides, like at the rear of the train, like people are hanging out. It's funny. It's like all these things that you would never even think about that would be allowed in North America. It's like people are just hanging out of the train kind of deal. And it was actually really cool also just for myself to actually see like trees and clouds for the first time in like a month and a half.
Yeah.
And it's like, it just very, very slowly climbs in elevation. And then all of a sudden then there's mountains. And then, the mountains get closer and closer. And it's just like, yeah, it was actually for me, just going from that month and a half of just pure misery, desert, to go to trees and clouds and reasonable temperatures. And so it was really cool. So basically what happened and I'm going to kind of butcher this. So I got off, basically what happened is, and I didn't realize this until I did this research in La Paz, but there's actually stops that, there's towns and cities along the way that you can stop off. Yeah. And so I took the train until the afternoon. So it left Las Mochis at about 6 a.m. And I took the train till about 2:30, 3 o'clock to this town. I know I'm going to butcher this. Boachove, I think it's pronounced. It's probably not quite like that, but it's Boachove. Uh-huh. People that have been on the train will know what I'm talking about. Anyways, I got off that train, and the plan was to get off for about 2 days and then catch the train again or whatever. And so I did some exploring. I went to this town, and I went to this lookout and where I could see one of the canyons. And I'm not even going to pronounce the canyon, but anyways, and then what I actually decided, I realized it's like I could actually take the bike, because I realized that couldn't actually figure out when the next train was I realized I didn't really know when the next train was going to go. And so I actually ended up biking 50 kilometers to where the main Copper Canyon lookout is. Yeah. And it's funny, I basically, because what I should backtrack, the train, what it is, the train has like second class, tourist class, and then it has first class kind of deal. Yeah. And they only run certain days. And it was kind of funny because basically I was at this place for a couple days, and then I biked 50 kilometers ish for a day and a half. It was very, very, very hilly. And then I got to where the main Copper Canyon viewpoint is, the famous viewing is. And it was like 20 minutes later, my train showed up. And so I beat my train for like 20 minutes. And it was actually kind of interesting because I was talking about how people were like, you could hang out the back of the train kind of deal. And anyway, so the train was there. It actually stopped. It was the one place that actually stops for like 20 minutes where everyone can get out and go look at the canyon and come back, get something to eat, kind of that kind of deal. Yeah. And it was kind of funny. So it's like the train is there. So I thought, I'm going to take some photos of the engine, because when I was there, I didn't even have time to get on the train, let alone go to the engine and take a few photos. And there the engine is. So I'm going to take some photos. Well, it's kind of crazy. I mean, I didn't bother doing this because it's like, I don't need to do these tourist things, but it's like people were actually jumping on the engine to get photos, get selfies kind of deal. Yeah, no. I mean, and that's why I love Central America, because in Canada, the US, there's no way you're jumping on an engine for a photo. You know what I mean? But it was like I literally watched like probably 30 people, like they took turns jumping on the engine, just, hanging on like the stairway, just hanging on, you know what I mean? Man. And it's like, then they get off and then, people just right on the engine, and the engineer is like right there, they're in the train kind of deal. And it's just, I'm just like, as a North American, I'm just like, what would be the ticket in Canada or US? Like you'd be charged with trespassing to be on the, because, people just, like in Canada, I know, like, well, I'm assuming it's obviously in the US too, of course. It's like you can't even walk on the train track. It's technically trespassing.
Yeah.
Well, in Mexico, they actually jump on the engines to get photos with this train. You know what I mean? It's like, and that's, you know, I mean, that's why I love Mexico and Central America, is just because they don't have these rules. It's just the Wild West kind of deal. So anyways, I ended up at this, so it was actually interesting because that day was very foggy. It was actually, I put them on Facebook. So it was, but it's like a bunch of days ago, of course. Yeah. But the whole canyon was completely fog. And I'm standing there, and the fog was actually kind of interesting because it showed a few of the peaks of the mountains or whatever. And I take a photo of the fog, and then all of a sudden, like literally within like single-digit seconds, the fog just, and I'm just right before my eyes, like literally within single-digit seconds, the whole canyon just emptied of complete. Then I took a photo halfway through where it was just a little bit and then like within single-digit seconds, the canyon was completely clear. Wow. And it was such a cool experience. But then it was like 20 minutes later, the whole canyon filled up with fog for the rest of the day, and then that was it. It was like then the fog never left. And anyways, but then I kept meeting. It was like my bike attracts his attention. I kept meeting all these people, and I actually met these mountain bikers that were from over on the Mexican side of El Paso. So I'm not going to try to pronounce the Mexican city. Yeah. Some people are yelling it's this city, but it's the Mexican city that's just south of El Paso. Yeah. They were from that area, and they actually did this mountain bike race in Creel, where I am right now, because I'm about 50 kilometers from that main viewing. And so they were visiting the main viewing area, but also to do mountain biking. And so we chatted for quite some time because it was all foggy, whatever. Anyways, we parted ways. The next day, I kind of basically checked out the whole, because the weather was clear. So I was able to check out the whole viewing area. And then we ended up reconnecting. And it was like 50 kilometers to this town. And it was like 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and there's no food between here and there. And it's like, well, what am I going to do? It's 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Actually, the food I was eating, the only thing they served there was at this lookout was gorditas, which are like these gross, greasy tacos. And I was already completely sick of them. Yeah. And it's like 2 o'clock in the afternoon. It's like, what do? Do I sit here, like sit until the evening and eat greasy gorditas, and then in the morning have some greasy gordita breakfast so that I can bike 50 kilometers to Krill? Or do I leave now, get no supper after biking up mountains, and then in the morning eat breakfast? Well, no, eat breakfast. There is no breakfast. Yeah. And then I got to bike 20 kilometers up mountains with nothing to eat, kind of deal. Yeah. And so I just kind of casual, because I was going to take the train. I mean, the plan was to take the train from Los Mochis to Krill anyways. So I just said, you guys got room in your pickup truck? Because they had 4 bikes themselves. I said, you got room for my bike? Oh, yeah. And so anyway, so I decided to take the ride to get to Krill. Yeah. Didn't know if it was a good idea or a bad idea from the perspective, okay, I'm supposed to be biking this kind of stuff. But I mean, here was some Mexicans that actually spoke some pretty good English. And, I like to try to connect with people because I never know where it's going to lead and kind of deal. It was kind of interesting because so they get to Krill, but then they're like, oh, we're waiting for this guy and I met this guy at Krill briefly. He didn't speak any English, but he was their guide. Yeah. To figure out where to go mountain biking. And they're like, oh, we're waiting for him. I'm like, okay, you're waiting for what? Oh, because he's, because they showed me this photo of where they were staying or something. They're like, oh, because like to get you a place to stay for the night. Yeah. Like as a hotel. And all of a sudden it's like, dude, guys, I don't really pay for a hotel. Like, I mean, yes, I get a hotel on occasion, but this is still sort of an expensive city because it's part of the Copper Canyon experience. Like, I don't really want to be paying for this kind of stuff. And, then the guy showed up and it's like, and I'm like, And so anyways, they're like, oh, then they sort of negotiate. Well, the guy actually has a place instead of this hotel. And I'm like, yeah, but how much? Because it's like, I don't really. And they finally said, well, he'd be willing to do it for like 300 pesos. Crap, I should have figured. I think that's like $15 or something for the night or something. Yeah. And I thought, okay, all right, you know what? You guys have taken me here, whatever. Now I'm in this town. Okay, all right. So I said, okay. So they take me to this cabin. It was actually a pretty nice cabin. It was a semi-detached cabin, kind of more or less in town, maybe 3 or 4 minutes from the downtown walk kind of deal. And so I had this place. I was like, okay. And so then I went to go investigate this town called San Ignacio. Like I said, I can say San Ignacio in Spanish. I checked this town out. And anyway, so then what happened, this is where things kind of got interesting, is I come back into town and this guy waves me down, this Luis guy. He's this jewelry maker. And he's just got his little table on the street kind of deal. He's like a vendor, and he waves me over, and he speaks really good English. And we start talking. He's like, yeah, I've got panniers, and I met this guy from Germany, like, I think it was whatever. He met this guy like many, many years ago, and it completely inspired him to be like this, like to do bike touring like I do kind of deal. Yeah. And he goes, I got my panniers, but I just like, I don't want to do anything like you, like as long distance, because I was telling the story. He goes, I just want to do like shorter, but I actually want to like go all the way to Guatemala and this and that. And he's like, so then he's like, hey, how about, would you like to come to dinner or come, like not come to dinner, sir, come after this evening to my house and we can talk and, you know, whatever. And I was like, oh yeah, of course. Because that's what I do, is just like when an opportunity presents it, I go. And so anyways, that ended up to be an invitation to host, because obviously that evening I wasn't going to get any work done and I had to get some vlogs done. So, you know, so then basically the next morning, like that was the thing, I stayed at his place till like 1:30 in the morning, and he was sort of a little bit outside of town. So then I had to bike all through the downtown of Creel at 1:30 in the morning. Once again, a big no-no in Mexico. But anyways, I'm still here, I'm alive. Anyways, so so the next morning I checked out of the cabin and I made my way here. And anyways, I was only going to stay maybe like a night or two to get some work done or whatever. I met his wife. He's married. His wife is Anna. So Louise and Anna Valquez, I think their last name is, I don't know, whatever. He's bad with names. But anyways, and the thing is, he's a jewelry maker. And so he's talking a lot about his jewelry. He actually made me this. It's called, I know you can't see it on the video very well, but it's called snakeskin rock or whatever, but he actually made this for me. Oh, cool. And he showed me his like little workshop, and his workshop is like a typical desk. Yeah. And he's like, yeah, he goes, actually, I make my living at this desk. I pay all my bills at this desk. Yeah. And he goes, you saw my little table, like, you know, and I did a blog post. There's actually a photo of the table. Actually, maybe we should actually share that on the video. And he goes, yeah, basically I make a living on this table. And I'm like, now I realize he's Mexican, not from Canada to the US, where the cost of living is more expensive. But I was like, I'm in a house. I'm in like a 4-bedroom house. I'm in a 4-bedroom house with a backyard. And he pays it, like, you know, his wife is also a jewelry maker. Yeah. And so between the two of them, they're making in their tables, they pay their bill. Like, it's like, so basically he pays 50% of his bills on this little table. I'm like, you pay like, holy smokes. Like I said, he shows me this desk, and it's just a desk, and it's like, holy smokes. Like, and so it's really, really intriguing that he's able to do this. You know, because for me personally, like my big thing is like when I get to Belize, how am I going? I mean, I have dreams and goals and ambitions, but some of this doesn't work out. It's like, how do I afford to live in Belize? Right. And I'm watching, you know, which is another Central American country, and he's doing it at this little table. Yeah. You know, and he mentioned it casually how he's taught some people, and he has this 10-day, I mean, he hasn't done it in many, many years, but basically he's been able to teach people in about 10 days how to make their own jewelry. And I was like, really? So it got me thinking, I thought, man, am I being distracted by something here or whatever? And I made a blog post like pros and cons. And anyways, I said, dude, you know what? I'm actually intrigued, even just from the perspective of other things. Like, you know, even if it goes nowhere, I said, I want you to teach me how. And that's the thing. Like, I don't buy jewelry. I never would buy jewelry. I never will buy jewelry. I've never worn jewelry. Yeah. But I said, you know what? This is kind of intriguing. This is interesting. I said, I would like you to teach me how to make jewelry. And so basically yesterday was our first day of a 10-day course where he teaches me at his desk. And we actually made a ring from just scrap pieces of silver. I mean, it's not like they don't start it. He's got, because it's all wire or whatever, or bissel and this and that. And he just cuts them in little pieces, right? Because it just becomes like a ring kind of deal. Yeah. And so he went from cutting the little pieces right to a finished there's the ring. And it was just right in front of my eyes. Like, just FYI for people, we're going to I videotaped the whole thing, and eventually they're kind of long segments, so it'll be a while to get them up into the cloud and for Brandon to turn them into a video. But we'll in the future at some point, when I've got enough speed for Wi-Fi that I can get videos into the cloud, we will make some videos on how this process of making jewelry is done. But anyways, backtrack though, just on Sunday, because today is Tuesday. So on Sunday though, he some people, I went down with him to watch him sell at his table, and these people showed up from his past that had been customers or whatever, because he used to have a coffee shop before COVID and all this and that. And anyways, they were talking, of course, all in Spanish, which I don't understand. And all of a sudden he said, hey, Sunday night we're going to be having an intimate concert in my living room. These people, they want us to sing for them, and so we will have because they're also musicians. And so we're going to have a concert in the living room kind of deal. I was like, okay, this should be interesting. And it was actually super cool. Sunday night was like super cool. And he actually sang. I mean, I think that evening will be like a highlight that I'll probably never forget as far as Mexico goes. Because he sang, because we were sharing some songs the night before. And one of my personal, longtime favorites, forever, is Simon and Garfunkel, Sound of Silence. And then so all of a sudden in the middle of he just said, Ari, this one's for you. And he sang Sound of Silence by Simon and Garfunkel. And then after that, he actually sang The Boxer, which is another favorite song. So it was actually a really, really, really cool experience that I probably would not have necessarily experienced had I, not said, hey, let's do this jewelry thing, because I would have probably wanted to get back on the road. So it will be in Krill for till the end of July, which is, I really should kind of be focused on heading. That was one of the cons. I should be focused on moving south. I've got to make up for some lost time or whatever. But whatever. The opportunity presented itself. So here I am, and this is what I'm going to do.
Nice.
And see where it leads.
That's awesome. Well, fantastic. It's awesome to hear. That's cool. Well, thanks so much, Ari, for updating us.
Yeah, we went a long time. I guess I rambled there for a while.
No, that's good. It's good to hear that. It's cool to make memories as you're going through these places. That's cool.
Yeah. No, it's kind of been important. All this, it's been an interesting ride. I call it a little bit like seasons, biking the Canadian winter, and then COVID hits, and then biking Canada through COVID, and then flying into the US and basically biking the US through the second wave of COVID kind of deal. And then the Baja being just this crazy, horrible, hardest experience of my entire life. And now I'm making jewelry kind of deal. We're learning to make jewelry. So it's
Awesome. Well, fantastic. Thank you guys so much for joining us. And if you don't mind, please hit subscribe and turn on your notification bell so you can be notified when we upload new videos. And please share these videos. That'd be awesome if you could do that as well. Ari, thank you so much, sir.
Yeah.
For the update, and we'll talk to you soon.
Awesome.